Hello, lovely peeps out there. You are watching Truth Talks TV. I am your host, Katerina, with my amazing guest and my beautiful friend here, Oren Harris, who is the Master of Flow, Infinite Coach, among many other titles and forms that he takes on. Thank you for joining me.
Awesome. Thank you for having me here in Truth TV. We're about to drop some truth bombs here.
Yes, yes, indeed we are. So, as you are wearing this beautiful shirt that says Flow, and you are the Flow Master, we're going to talk about this first because this has been sort of a big part of my life for the past few years. A dear friend of mine first introduced me to it a couple of years ago, and it has been, I guess, how I live, although I'm sure that there are many levels, of mastery of flow. So
for sure,
what is, since you are the flow master, what is the flow really? Because it's not about, sometimes people think, oh, just go with the flow, like this passive, hippie-ish kind of way. So what is the flow?
The flow is a state of being. It's a state of connectedness. It's a mode of operation. It's a way of experiencing life, because anything that we describe in our reality that we would call our life is how we're experiencing our life. So we can experience our life, for example, from the standpoint of our mind and our intellect and our knowledge, or from our intuition. And when we're experiencing life from our intuition, that's closer to what we're calling the flow, because now our perspective has expanded out to include more of our whole being, body, mind, and spirit. And so if we're experiencing our life within the context of our mind, then that will be our experience. And anytime we tap into the flow, we're coming into alignment with the broader part of who we are. You could say our soul, our spirit, which connects us to the whole. And so it's a state of interconnectedness. And like, for example, when we're in the flow, when we're experiencing the flow, one of the things that happens frequently is synchronicity. But synchronicity is kind of just like a revelation. It's revealing something that's already been pre-paved. It's already actually existing. It's just that if you're experiencing yourself from your mind in a contracted point of view, the things that are already happening, if you're not experiencing them, then to you, they're not happening. They're still there. So it's like these synchronicities are actually destiny moments waiting to fulfill themselves, waiting to actually happen. And when you're in the flow, you are connected to them. You are connected in your awareness. They actually reveal themselves to you. And because it didn't come with the linear planning aspect of the mind, sometimes it occurs as a revelation. Sometimes we call it miraculous. Sometimes, oh my God, what a coincidence. Whoa, all of these words, magical, coincidence, oh my God, wow, that's crazy, strange. All of those are our mind trying to project a label onto this experience, and it's essentially saying the same thing. Like the me in my mind, has no way of really explaining how this synchronized in this way, how this impeccable, flawless timing and coordination of events, like we don't have enough bandwidth in our mind to harmonize that many precise details, and that's why it exists outside of just our mind, but it's not separate from us either. So that's a state of beingness, and everybody has their certain area that is more conducive for them to be in the flow for whatever reason. They may not realize why that is. Like travel. For most people, like you travel, they say like Vegas, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Right?
So you give yourself an excuse, not you, but for a lot of people. I use travel as an example because a lot of people can get into flow when they travel, but that's because they're like, oh, permission to be free, permission to be me, permission to adventure into the unknown when I don't have a lot of structured plans, don't have a lot of obligations, responsibilities. When you let go of the energy that gets consumed in all of these ideas of how we interact with responsibility, when you let go of that and create space, you expand and you just allow more of what's already happening to occur. For some people, it's art. For some people, it's music. For some people, it's when they sit. But everybody has a place that it's more conducive for them to allow that which is natural. So the flow is actually a very organic, natural state of existence. It's a natural state of being.
But we can, even if there's certain times or things that allow it to allow us to be in line with that more, it is also possible for us to be in that state at all times if we master it.
Right. It would have to be, because I like the word state, because you said state. It's a state of being. And a state of being is an experience. It's the way you're experiencing. It's a flow of energy. It's the quality of your life. It's not the content. It's the context of your life. And because there is no context inherent in any content or in any specific place, we think there is. We're like, oh, when I go to Hawaii, it's Hawaii itself that brings this feeling. And it's like, no, there is something. It's a co-creation. There's much more to that. And so because it's a state of being, reality in that sense is kind of neutral, depending on how we're interacting with it, consciously or unconsciously, is depending on how we're going to experience that. But the very fact that, you know, the quality and experience of our life comes from our state of being and how we're feeling points to that you can feel the same way anywhere.
Right.
And that's part of the growth. That's part of the mastery of the flow, if you will, is like, and really all that's happening is you're running into different edges in your mind. Like you might be like, when I'm traveling, I can be in the flow because I can be myself because, and you give all these justifications. But what you're not realizing perhaps is that if you're saying, well, that's because of the way this, you're saying, well, when I'm in the office, for example, with 20 other people that I work with, or when that means that, and whatever you're about to say after that isn't true. That means I can't be myself. That means I can't. And that's not truth. It's not.
Right.
The truth.
Right.
And that's what will block the flow, is like we really think that, well, we can't.
Yeah, it's like
that we can't have this state of being.
Right.
But we associate it with the action, but it's not the action, it's the state of being. So I'm like, well, it'd be like somebody says, well, Oren, what am I supposed to do? You know, like, I get in the flow when I play and I like dance and I like act crazy. What am I supposed to do? Jump up in the middle of a board meeting and be like, That's not the point. The point is that if you feel free enough and true enough within yourself, then if that energy is trying to flow through you, it doesn't have to express itself in like that.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? Because it's a state of being. You could sit still
right.
and experience that, which means that the boardroom cannot in and of itself stop you from allowing that state of being to flow through you.
Right. It's your limitation and your mind that stops it.
And that's how we fragment ourselves. We say, okay, I can be this way here, but not over here. Or there's an opposition here. There's a time for this, a time for that. It's just, you know, and to a certain degree, I can see that how that's helpful. But at an energetic level, that's where we limit ourselves, and we're actually obstructing the flow, because the flow is a state of being. It's a feeling. And we may not be able to conceptualize in our mind, how can I feel the same way when I'm in the boardroom with Harry, who's a jackass, who a certain way? How can I feel the way that I do when I'm in Bora Bora sipping, you know, toddies on the beach? But you can. Yes, indeed. You can.
Yeah, you've even said that, like, even you could still, even when you're like a CEO running 500 people, it could still be within the flow. It doesn't have to be that your mind has to control. We're talking about like memory and things like that before.
Yeah, because the truth is, and I think that anybody can grasp this, at least mentally. They may not feel it, they may not experience it, but even logically, even people who don't believe in the flow, for example, there's some really fundamental truths that if you're just willing to look at them, they're obvious. And one of them is that if you're standing in a moment, if I have a corporation and there's 100,000 people involved globally, and I have meetings and all manner of things occurring right now, it's still true that in this moment, I'm sitting here with you. Mm-hmm. And all the only energy that I need is for this moment contained in this moment, and there's nothing else actually happening. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't actually have to take from the flow of this moment, but it can significantly do that if I have like 40 other programs running in the background of my hard drive,
right,
while I'm talking to you, which is going to affect the flow of this moment and my experience with it. And it feels like it's real, but it's not. I'm not in Asia working with my team in Asia right now. I'm not crunching numbers right now. None of that's actually happening right now. So this is called like being in real time. And that's why I'm pointing at that, because anybody can wrap their mind around that.
Right.
If they're really not fighting that, anybody, I think, unless they just don't want to, can get a hold of a simple idea like that. Mm-hmm. Like you're only doing what you're doing when you're doing it, and that's it. This is the moment.
Yeah.
So to think that it's actually true that a conversation I'm going to have with somebody an hour from now, or something that happened in the past, is actually has power over me to take my resources from this moment, is not actually true. I'm not saying that that's not normal. I'm just saying that it's not how it is.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that when I was going through the sort of the start of my journey and learning how to be in the flow, one of the things that my friends sort of helped me see is that something related to like desire, noticing what that desire is in that moment. I felt myself go through a process of removing sort of the habits and the things that I was just used to doing. So like literally we're like, I would wake up one day, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to just go and brush my teeth like I normally would, because I want to, you know what I mean? Like I had to kind of like a baby, I had to kind of like come back into like learning how to, flow in every moment, and actually like, okay, I'm going to brush my teeth now, because I mean, it sounds maybe crazy to some people, but literally it was like this learning process of like learning to follow that feeling and those impulses. But for me, it was kind of like seen through desire. So how does desire play into it? Because again, it's not like, Zen masters or people say desire is like if you say I want something, then you're like lacking it. So now you're like actually outside of yourself because you're saying I want, but it's like...
No offense to all the Zen masters out there. I mean, I kind of feel like one sometimes, or I can tune into that station, the Zen master station.
Right.
Anybody can. Nothing equals anything. Nothing. Saying want does not inherently do anything. Mm-hmm. And I see the value of science and information, because we can use it as a platform, a platform to go beyond form, to actually allow us to expand. So I'm not saying, I'm not swinging the other side and say, well, forget all language and forget all words, but I am saying that if you're going to take a concept, if I was going to advise somebody on their relationship to a concept, I would first draw a perspective, and the perspective that I'm offering here is that there is nothing inherent that saying the word want does. So that concept only has that degree of potential within it, to the degree that it's actually truth. Want doesn't say anything any more than if I say, like I could say right now, Kat, I hate you. You're horrible. Oh my God, But see, it doesn't matter. My state of being is communicating that I love you, that I appreciate you. Or I could be like, internally pissed off at you, be like, oh, hi, Kat. I love you so much. But inside I'm like, I hate you. So the word, and the reason that type of information came out in the first place is the same way we put all things into information. We observe a tendency, we observe a pattern in something, and then we conclude that thing equals that thing, and it becomes science. But it's not science. I mean, it's not truth, because want, maybe for 98% of the people, 99% of the time, when they say want, they're in a state of lack. Mm-hmm. I could say I could say all manner of things that I want in the future, or things that I feel like I don't have right now, and be completely connected in the moment and not be separate from that idea. And it will be a now statement. It will be a now manifestation. It will be a now fulfilled, received state of being that's happening now.
Wow.
So saying I want does not separate. It doesn't put it into the future.
Mm-hmm.
But to go back and honor the information that's out there, generally speaking, most of the time when people say I want, they're actually feeling the absence rather than the presence. But it's their state of being. I think I didn't tell you this. I had this idea to do this interview series called Inside Her Secrets, and I have the domain, and I'm still going to do it, right? I wrote it. Did I tell you this?
We did talk about this, but please.
Yeah, I'll share with you.
Yes.
Now that we're recording. So the idea came to me, but it's even before the idea came to me. My state of being, my field, is manifesting a very specific tonality, a very specific texture, and I'm trying to give you like the deep layer of this that's outside of our awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So you could essentially say that that's my soul's intent. That's the divine intent trying to manifest. It's what is queued up. It's my whole world, right? And so by the time I got the idea to do the interview series, now that's translated, got downloaded into my mind from my spirit. And so from there, I decided to start writing down, and I now started to come into form. Now it's information now. And now I'm actually, me writing down what I'm going to do in the future is actually still a now occurrence. Why? Because I'm still feeling and manifesting the feeling. I'm the feeling in motion now, so it's actually still not in the future because it's in joy, it's in inspiration, which means the energy is now flowing through me. It's in motion. So when I write it down, if my mind came and said, yeah, I wrote that down, but I haven't done it yet, so let me get to the future, that's what we generally do. But see, like if I keep following that in each part of it, I keep the flow in motion, then eventually the physical manifestation of an interview series, I would have enjoyed the journey along the way. And I would have been in the now the whole time, even though I'm working towards the future, because there is no future outside of the now trying to happen. And not only is that a recipe for fulfillment, but the vision that gets downloaded, if that's accurate and it's supposed to manifest in physical form in that way, the fastest way, the most enjoyable way to get there is to have it enjoy and be immersed in the journey of it, because that is the fulfillment of it.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons we create things, is to experience the fulfillment flowing through us, and to experience being alive, and to experience ourselves in that state of being.
Right. Isn't it like that idea comes almost, I've kind of felt this, like it almost comes within itself complete, even though it's not necessarily complete in the physical, but it comes like, it's, yeah.
And here's the thing, and I know you've heard this, probably people listening to this have heard this a bunch of times. If you get that there is no inherent energy in anything, and all you have is your state of being in any moment, and that's the quality of your life, and that's the only thing you're ever really experiencing, then it's not a trick of the mind to try to say, be content with it now. There is, like, if you are feeling the fulfillment of it now that you imagine you're going to feel in the future, that is it. It is the manifestation.
Yeah.
That is what you're trying to manifest.
Right.
That is the manifestation. Do you get me?
Yes.
Because all you can manifest is you and your experience, and you're experiencing yourself as that state of being flowing through you as you. That's all that you can. So you are the manifestation of it. The whole thing about manifesting reality really is trying to say that, like, if you become the manifestation of something, you are content. It is complete. You are fulfilled in that moment. Then reality will reflect that back to you. And if you are still, if it's still true for you, and you keep vibrating in that space, appreciating and being that, then all manner of other things that reflect that energy to you will come. And that could be the building of an entire empire, but it's still one point. It's still one point being reflected an infinite number of ways. And so we trick ourselves sometimes into thinking, even with like personal and spiritual development stuff, to say, oh, well, if I can feel the feeling right now, then I'll get the thing. But that's like saying, if I can feel the feeling right now, then in the future, I'll be able to feel the feeling. Because that's all you're going to feel in the future.
Right. Right.
So the feeling is the manifestation.
Yes.
Because no thing has feeling. Whether it's an empire or a vacation that you booked. There's still going to be you in that moment and the depth of feeling in that moment that you're feeling the vacation. Or if you have an international empire that you created from a feeling, there's still going to be you feeling in the moment what that feels like. So that's why I said if I had a 10,000 person corporation, I'm sitting here having an interview with you, I'm still one being who has that entire experience.
Right.
And I'm feeling it to the depth that I'm actually feeling and in the flow and being. There's nothing outside of that. Doesn't matter if it has a million moving parts or one moving part. It's only one movement. That's your experience of it. This is my experience of me talking to you and having these 500,000 people that I'm interacting with.
Right.
It's still one feeling. It might have an infinite number of textures and flavors within it that represent all these things that are seemingly outside of you. There's my relationship with these people and that people, these people. But that's still coalesced into one experience. Right.
And what you were just saying, and this is something that I think finally realized for myself recently, and I think what often people do is, when they have maybe a dream or an idea or vision for something, it's like they think that thing is going to give them a certain feeling. Like, once I get this book out in the world, I'm going to feel like this. But I'm seeing that, no, it's this feeling now in this moment as you're even... I don't even know how to explain it. Maybe you can better, but it is so much more about this moment because, like you said, it's not that feeling's not going to be any different than the feeling you would have now.
Right. You're not ever creating the future outside of the moment. Yeah. So it's almost predictable in a sense. I mean, I say that lightly.
Right.
Because, like, you're creating the experience in the future from the now. Right. So the decisions you're making, like my client, for example, we're together for the next 3 days, and she had an appointment scheduled for tomorrow. And, it looks like it's tomorrow, but I'm like, how you're interacting with your decision and your choice right now, because she's like, I don't know, should I call and cancel or should I not? This lady's really hard to get in with. I'm like, whether you cancel or you don't cancel, what do you want? You don't even know what you want right now. You think you want to know, should I cancel? But I'm like, let's say you feel like you should cancel. You feel like you should cancel, but you decide not to because you feel bad. Then if you make the decision to go do the thing, the bad feeling in the now is going to find your ass in the future.
Right.
Because you can't separate yourself from it. You're creating the experience of the thing with the lady in the future in the now. So if the emotional content was created from feeling bad, that's the depth of fulfillment that you're going to have in the future because the creation is architected in the now.
Wow. Wow. And you've said, which is, I love this that you said that about decision. You've said to me in an email, and I'm still trying, not trying, but it's still becoming part of me, this idea that, and I've felt this in my life, but this idea that that decision is actually an illusion of perception, you've said.
Yes.
And I've felt when in advance of making some kind of step, I'm feeling like I'm deciding this or that or this or that or this or that, and then it's like whoosh, and it's just like there is no decision. It's just like a knowing or just like a desire to this. How do you explain that?
And this isn't completely accurate, but we know what we want. Like when my client was trying to decide, what was really happening was that she, from her feeling, which is more accurate than her analyzing, because her analyzing has judgment in it.
Right.
It has guilt in it. It has judgment. It's not actually clear in the first place. So what was revealed to her when she let go of that was she's like, well, I already know I'm not going to the appointment. I'm like, I know you know. You're just not receiving what you know. And if you don't receive what you know, then even if you do it, it's not happening. That's what I'm saying. There's nothing outside of how you feel. Yeah. So if you don't feel the full feeling and receiving of what you truly want and what is actually true for you, then even if you make a decision from that point of feeling at 50%, you're only going to feel 50% fulfillment. And the rest of it is like the energy just twisting another way. I'm like, you do know what you want. And the crazy thing is that your perception of how she's going to respond is your perception. Because if you feel bad and then you make a decision or you project a perception onto her saying, well, I know that, you know, it's going to inconvenience her, for example. In the field of probabilities, if inconvenience was one experience, it's one experience that could happen, you will synchronize with her being inconvenienced. More than likely, it's a higher probability that you'll synchronize with her being inconvenienced if you feel bad. But all of a sudden, and this is how you change the quantum field, all of a sudden, if you're like, wow, I really feel in love, and I feel like I should cancel, or I feel like I should do this instead, right? Go paint. For example, she's a painter, right? I feel like I should go paint. Then if that comes to you through love and it's a pure frequency and you're in the presence of that, then it's actually changing the synchronicity of what's happening on the other end with the person who seems to be solid.
Right. But
even if they said to you, I'm trying to give you something that really solid to where you can really be in a state of control, even if the lady said to her, I hate when people cancel on me. Even if she said that very strongly, somehow, miraculously, this time, if she was present, because this is being co-created on another level, the possibility could come to where she's like, it's weird. Normally, I would feel like this was a bad thing, but the craziest thing happened. You canceled and this amazing thing happened.
Yes.
But that synchronicity generally doesn't get revealed to you if you are creating in your now moment from guilt, which is already outside of truth.
Right.
Even if you're doing it in the spirit of love or harmony. Mm-hmm. We don't know how to create harmony on that level.
Right.
Because our minds like to control, and we control through our perception, so we don't have the capability from our mind to create harmony. Even though we want harmony in our hearts, like, of course, I want collaboration, cooperation, harmony. I want you to get what you want. When we try to create it from our mind, we go into a state of control, and we use our limited information to go, oh, well, I know Kat. I know she likes this. I know she doesn't like that. So since I know that, you know, I'm not going to, like, present my complete truth because I already know it's not going to be harmonious. So let me not completely be honest with you and tell you what it is that I want.
Right.
But I'm doing it for you, for us.
Right.
So that we can both win. And I'm like, you can't create harmony like that. Or you can only create certain levels of harmony. Right. And when you surrender or when you find yourself in the flow in spite of that thought, that's when we get surprised again. Like, I never would have thought that these two things would happen at the same time. Or I never would have thought, you know what I mean? And then we're humbled again.
Yeah. It's like if we get, right, because our mind is so limited with all these limitations and, like you said, perceptions and judgments and just gets in the way. And actually, this is a beautiful, the example I want you to just elaborate on that a little bit, because you and I had this actual interview on Friday. 2 days ago, let's say 3 days ago. And we were having a little bit of technical difficulty and whatnot. And I felt that I really wanted to redo this interview today. Today is Monday. And you have this client, this like experience that you were doing with this client, but you felt that there would be an opening. So we both felt like, okay, let's flow with this. I felt that it would happen somehow. You felt that it would be able to happen. And so what was it that your client said?
So my client says to me, ironically, she's like, well, I'm going to need to go across town at like 2 o'clock because, and now so the truth is, I'm analyzing it as I'm telling it to you, or I'm breaking it down. The truth is that she wanted to go across town to do something, and that was actually in the flow. It was actually in a state of love. But her mind intercepted it because she perceived that that's going to interrupt our experience. The irony is that it actually was perfect. And so she, in that moment, is not fully feeling what she really wants. And she's thinking, okay, well, I don't want to mess up what's going on here. Mm-hmm. She's thinking, you get what I'm saying? But what she really wants was actually waiting as a synchronous moment, waiting to manifest in her awareness. Mm-hmm. It could have been blocked and intercepted, and if it was, then it would have been like it never happened. So this interview maybe wouldn't have happened. She would have stayed here. But if the flow was trying to let this synchronize and harmonize where this interview happened perfectly, it was actually a perfect break anyway within our transformational process, and she wanted to go do that. It probably helped her integrate what happened. None of that would have happened in the spirit of harmony and love. And like, well, I want to be polite. I want to be respectful. I want to be, serious about my transformation. I don't want to go do it. And all of that, and we would have been sitting there, and we've been in a state of contraction or a lower flow state. We may not even recognize it. I probably would have, because I'm sensitive to that. Mm-hmm. So all in the spirit of harmony and love and optimal potential and win-win, we would have been creating not that.
Right.
But it would give the appearance of it, because it's like, oh, no. Here we are. Let's strangle each other here.
Yes.
Into this moment.
Yes, exactly. And she was apologetic, you said, even like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I really want to. And you're thinking like, no, this is perfect. Like, I want to do this interview, and this is perfect. Like,
right. And then when I said that, she felt relief. And the relief she felt was her sinking back into the flow and back into truth.
Yes.
That's why I said it was ironic. And it's like, that goes into asking. And, this has been a theme lately, too, about asking. Like, and this is another way to access more flow, is to fully feel what you're asking or wanting, and share it in its purest version, at least up front. If you're going to share and try to co-create with somebody else, share it in its fullness, because when you share it in its fullness, it's actually a sharing of love, and it's a sharing of truth. Mm-hmm. Don't interject control in there or perception, at least at the onset.
Right.
I'll give you an example. This is a good one. On my birthday last year, my friend, a really dear, close friend of mine, we were actually dating for a short time. And we had stopped dating, and it was like, my birthday is December 4th. It was on Thanksgiving. And we stopped dating like 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. So I was still down to go to Thanksgiving. She invited me to go to San Diego for Thanksgiving dinner. I was still down. Because the truth is, I still enjoy her. Right? Doesn't matter if we're dating or not. But I was open to not going if she didn't feel lined up with it anymore. So she's like, you know what? I do want you to go. And I was like, great. So we went. We had an amazing time. And then so everything that we had in our futures before we stopped dating each other came up in question. Mm-hmm. Because we're not dating anymore. And based upon how she was feeling. So I was respecting how she was feeling. But still, I'm going to be truthful. Otherwise, I'm in a state of control. I'm not going to be like, let me try to figure out how to be and act around you so that I fit in the parameters of, I don't want to have any control of that. So anyway, now it came to my birthday, and she was on the fence, but somewhere inside her, she wanted to do something with me for my birthday. So she said, hey, I got this idea. Me and this other girl, who's a really good friend of mine, we want to do something for you for your birthday. I said, great. This was the original flow. Mm-hmm. I said, great. So then, it's the day before my birthday, and she goes, what do you want to do? And I felt something strange when she asked that, because I thought I thought they were going to roll something out. So I was in that flow. I'm going to receive fully whatever you want.
Right.
But it felt off, but it was still in the flow for me to answer her. So she's like, so what do you want? So that's what she's saying to me. Mm-hmm. And so I answered her, and I said, wow, because my friend has an amazing house, and they were living together. I said, I'd love to come over, have some nice music, have a bubble bath with some like essential oils, some rose petals, some relaxing music. Maybe you guys could cook me dinner. Maybe one of you could give me a massage, and then after that, maybe we could like just chill, watch a movie, or just hang. This is how I was, and that she asked me, right?
Right.
That's pure. Because I'm sensitive, I did, and I don't do this very often, but I did feel into her, taking in of what I said, and without her even saying anything, I was like, whoa, what is that? Doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
So then she texts me, but I can feel the emotional content of her reaction. So she texts me, and this goes back to, it's not the words, it's the feeling, but since I can feel feeling, she texts me something, and she was like, oh, her text message response was like, "Ah, geez," you know, which was almost like saying, "This, you're pretty bold. Like, who are you? You know what I mean?" It was very lightly like, "What? Like, who are you? Like, who do you think you are?
Right.
Are you a king or something?" I'm like, yes, I am. And you asked me what I wanted."
Right.
So I told her, I said, "Fess up. Like, why am I feeling that inside you?" And then she told me the truth. The truth was she was on the fence. The truth was that she was feeling like maybe she wanted to do something else. The truth was that she loves me. The truth was that she felt bad canceling on me. So she was creating this moment with me, and her asking the question was a projection. It wasn't actually truth. So she didn't really want to know the answer. That's why when I said the answer to her, it triggered her.
Right.
And so when I got together with her and this revealed, I said,
Wow.
and she started crying, and she's like, well, I felt bad, and I feel like, I wanted to do something special for you, and I felt like I was, and I'm like, the irony of this moment is you're actually giving more to me right now by sharing this with me and sharing the truth. If you would have went through with the birthday plans reluctantly, even if it was like 30% reluctance, that would have been the experience for us. Probably not for me, because I would have decided to have an amazing time anyway. But I'm like, that's not love.
Yes.
It's not giving. I'm like, and it's ironic that to your mind, you think, oh, I'm not being loving because we're not going to do it. I'm like, this is actually love, because now I know that you care. You're trying to show me that you care by doing the birthday thing. That's not caring. And it's ironic that even though we're not going to do it anymore, I actually feel that you care. And in your mind, you never would have thought you could communicate care by canceling.
Yes.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, and so there's obviously several insights in that story, but it's like, yeah, the asking thing. I mean, that was the first insight I was pointing at. I was like, I didn't. If I would have taken control, I would have used my mind and even my intuition. This is where intuition can even be dangerous. Not dangerous, but limiting. If I use my intuition, I'm going to use that because I feel like it'll stretch the listeners more than the mind. The mind's obvious. Like, okay, the mind contains limitations. You project your perception. It's inaccurate most of the time. Yeah. Even intuition is a projection of power in this case, because if I would have used my intuition, you know what would have happened? She would have said, what do you want for your birthday? And I would have felt into her, and then I would have tailored my response based on that, and it wouldn't have been completely true. Because then I would have been running into a limitation anyway, because I'd been like, wow, I don't feel like she could deliver that, so why would I tell her what I really want? Because I can feel that she can't deliver it. Right. So if I gave her another version, am I actually being truthful in the purest version of what I really want? No, I'm not. Now, it is like, that's up to her. As far as I'm concerned, that's up to her on whether or not I'm allowing her to be powerful and be responsible enough to say, wow, I don't feel like I can, or I feel like I can, or I feel like I want to, or I feel like I don't want to, rather than using my intuition and taking control of that and going, well, I already know she didn't mean that, because part of me did know that. That's what I said when she first asked me, intuitively, I was like, something feels off. Right. So that's how we can use, and this is a higher level awareness, that's how we can use our intuition to even be in a state of control. Right. Because the truth is, I'm like, you're powerful enough, clear enough, responsible enough as a soul to handle your life. You ask me a question, and this is my truth. and I am still detached. And that's the thing about desire. I wasn't actually attached, and that's why I'm not in a state of lack. If I'm like, oh my gosh, if she doesn't deliver this, then I'm going to feel let down. No. And that's why a lot of times we're afraid to admit and be present to what we really desire, because especially with, not especially, but sometimes even with a lot of these spiritual principles, we feel like, oh my gosh, dare I be present to my optimal situation, and dare I speak it and then not get it, I'm going to feel rejected or let down, and I don't want to feel that, so I'll water it down. I'll apologize. I'll justify. I won't even say it. I'll control. I'll wonder if it's going to happen, because we don't want to risk feeling let down. But all I'm saying, back to the whole thing of the use of the word want and lack, or the use of this concept, saying what you really want does not put you into a state of lack, or into a state of attachment, or into a state of demand. I wasn't demanding anything of anybody. I was just sharing the full truth of my moment. So I felt complete.
Right.
I wasn't like, so am I going to get the bath? Am I is it going to happen? Is it going to, don't tell me you're not going to, or if you're like, no, I was just like, I was complete.
Right.
And when I give my complete truth, wholly like that, and she does, and we join each other in the full truth, and the full truth for her would be like, part of me really wants to do something with you. Another part of me feels like I should spend time alone. Another part of me is a little bit scared. Another part of me is like, I still really like you, and I'm confused. If she were to embrace that and give me all the information, either literally or energetically, and we both join in that space, that's how actually harmony can happen. For me, I was just more clear about what I wanted. For her, she just had to sift through that to get to what she really wanted.
Right.
That's the only way we can experience true harmony, and where there's no loss. I didn't feel a loss when we didn't do the thing.
Right.
In my mind, if I was attached to that, and in the lack, then I would have felt a loss. But I didn't feel a loss. I felt a gain, because I felt like we got closer. I felt like deeper. I felt that she actually gave me a gift. She gave me the whole truth of her being, and she went through each layer of it to get there, but she had to have the space and some level of acceptance to allow herself to get to the core of it, because it was in there, and she couldn't feel it completely, though, because she had all these other layers. So when she got to it, that's why, boom, it's like release. And then she did wind up doing something for me. It's now a creation that was purely by choice. So it was an act of love now.
Yes. And see, and this is what you bring up such a good point, because you said, she was thinking that if she canceled on you or whatever, that she wouldn't be loving. And so it's our mind that tries to, that determines like what love is and what love is not, versus your truth is, and being in the flow and being in your truth is loving others, because what's for your highest good is typically, or I would even say is always for the highest good of all involved as well.
Right. Totally.
Right? I mean, that's because I felt that with myself, with some of the decisions that I've made, or things that I've done, that could feel like, oh, when I moved to Belgrade, for example, oh, I'm leaving my family who I'm so close to. Oh, that's not loving. But no, me acting out of my highest truth and my desire is good for them as well, even if they don't see that it's good for them.
Right. And this is a big one for a lot of people. For a lot of us, it can be, it can be challenging. I was talking to a lady who runs a community. She has several thousand people. She's mainly a writer. She has a blog, right? And she wrote a book, and we're talking about the desire to be in service and help people, right? And she's like, I finished the book. She's like, hopefully I hit it. Like I hit the mark. And I was like, hit? What do you mean by hit it? I couldn't feel what she meant. Yeah. She was saying, well, hit it. Like, I wanted to write it from my spirit, not from my ego, whatever. And now that I'm done, I hope that I hit it. And I was like, I couldn't connect with what she was saying. I said, did you hit it? I'm like, what are you trying to hit? And what she realized was, I said, you're split, because on one hand, if the experience of writing the book in and of itself, if you were in truth moment to moment in the journey, immersed in it, it's complete unto itself. And what it revealed, I said, what you're doing, I can feel with you and your community with good intent, is you're trying to be in service. I said the irony is that when you try to be in service from how you perceive your community, how you perceive what they need, you're not servicing their soul. You're not actually in love. In fact, your perception of how they might respond or react to you, if you have a perception and you have a feeling you don't want to be perceived in a certain way, and then you make decisions from not wanting to be perceived that way, you're actually in judgment of yourself. So the decision you make is not even in service. It's not even love.
Wow.
It's only potentially love. It's not. It's not actually love. And at that point, you're running into the same edge inside you that's inside them. And if you're the one potentially going to be of influence and help guide them back into themselves, you can't help them past that point because you're at the same edge.
Wow. So
you're like, wow, if I say this or do this, they might perceive that as not being love. But I'm like, but if it is love, and you're afraid that they're going to perceive that it isn't, so then you control their perception. Now you're not in love, you're in judgment. And you have no influence. Oh, at best you'll be able to relate to them. You're like, oh yeah, we both feel the same way.
Oh my God, this is like so, yes, because I'm seeing myself, yes, wondering or feeling through the same thing, where it's like I've wondered when something comes through me that I want to express, and then immediately I could feel my mind go, oh, but maybe it sounds harsh, or maybe it sounds like this. But what you're saying is if you just go with that pure, because it does come from a place of love, go with that pure vibration, it is in service to others.
Yeah, and at times that we've done that, I know at times that I've done that when I've been reluctant to, there's been so many times, and I'm careful in saying this because this isn't the payoff, but there's been so many times that, like, that very thing that I said, that even initially might have been like, whoa, is the very thing they're like, that actually the transformation happened. And they're like, oh my gosh, thank you, Oren. Or how did you know to say that? Or how, but it's like, what are you in service to? Are you in service to people's minds, to their egos? Or are you in service to the very thing that they're actually looking for a demonstration? They're looking for a beacon. They're looking for a lighthouse. They're looking for something to reflect back to them, to help them lead them back inside themselves. So are you in service to that, or are you in service to their mind and their perception, the very thing that has them where they are in the first place?
Right.
And that anytime we do that, even if it makes sense in our minds, it's still not love. And the realization here, part of it is that when we do that, and I think this is what a lot of times what we miss, when we do that, we're actually in judgment. When we don't speak our truth, even if we say, oh, well, that's because that person's not going to get it, that's a really convenient excuse. But if you look closer, when we don't speak our truth, most of the time, we're actually in judgment. And we think that they're in judgment maybe. Oh, they might judge us. And I'm like, well, they might, but the perception that they might judge us, the whole thought process that they might judge us, the feeling that, hey, they might judge me by what I'm going to say, is you judging yourself. Yes. It's a projection.
Yes.
And it seems like it's them. You're like, I'm concerned about whether or not they're going to receive the love that or they're going to judge me. The moment you say that, you're already in judgment. Before you even made a move, the whole question is coming from judgment.
Wow.
The whole and that's why I said whether you're analyzing or you're using your intuition in relation to something you're perceiving of how somebody's going to receive you, most of the times when we're evaluating that, whether it's in an enlightened, intuitive way or a mental analyzing way, we're evaluating. It's the reason why we're evaluating it. And it's usually judgment.
Right.
So any decision we make from that is a decision from judgment, and we're not actually creating movement. We're creating contraction, and that blocks the flow.
Wow. Right. So because you said if your intuition can sense that somebody is feeling something, and now you're forming your answers or what you're going to say based on that.
Right. You're forming your truth now.
Right.
Based upon, and that's why it's so deceptive. And I wanted to highlight this area because it's more deceptive, it's more elusive because it's coming from intuition. And you might be accurately, intuitively feeling into something, but it's still a projection anyway.
Right.
Because you are the determiner of whether or not you're going to draw that aspect out of them anyway. So it's still not solid. Yeah. And if you use that to form the purity of what you really want, you're lying. It happens at light speed. You've already worked it out. Even if you didn't work it out mentally, you've already worked it out. Well, if this, then that. And I already know there's a whole set of assumptions, aka projections in there that are influencing the purity of what you really want. And this is all the way down to just simple day-to-day examples. Like my friend asked me the other night, we were all hanging out, there's 3 of us, and then she had to leave, but I could feel the flow was she still wanted to hang out with us, right? The flow was we still wanted to hang out with her. The energy was still flowing. So she's like, oh crap, I gotta leave. Already starting to be apologetic. She's not completely out of the flow. So then she's like, well, unless you guys want to go with me, I mean, if you're not doing anything, I mean, that's control. If you're not doing anything. She's basically as if we can't tell her our truth.
Right.
And when we do that stuff, we think we're being polite. We think we're just being cooperative. She's trying to manage and they're constricting the flow. And so I asked her, I said, well, what do you want? And she's like, well, I want you guys to go if you want to go. And I'm like, that's not even true. It's more true.
Right. Okay.
The truth is, you just want us to go.
Right.
That's childlike, pure love. I would love for you to go. Done. So saying I would love for you to go if you want to go, it's one of those subtle layers, but there's already less love happening. And then dropping down into, well, I want you to go if you want to go, and are you busy, or I know you're busy, that's dropping even lower flow. And if you keep dropping, then you'll be saying something like, I'm not even going to ask.
Oh my God.
Or I heard you say earlier you had plans that you were psyched about or that were really important, so I already know that, so why would I tell you my love right now? Which my love is, I would love for you to go. Yeah. And I'm like, that's what's true. And when I asked her and she tapped back into that, pure presence, pure radiance of just what's wanted and still detachment. No lack.
Right.
She lit up. She was like, and she expanded because she was embodying her own truth that was still sitting there, even though it seemed like she was telling the truth. So I think having fun playing in this subtle zone because it's different levels of contrast in light frequency. Right. It's more subtle. It's these little areas, and like I said to my client earlier, if you can see it in the micro, you can see it easy in the macro, and sometimes there's even more expansion happening if you're able to see how in the seemingly tiniest example, how that's playing out in the biggest, most dramatic example. It's the same mechanism.
Yes, exactly.
It's the same subconscious mechanism in a much lighter version of it, because it wasn't, I mean, anything was going to be fine if we didn't go. But the thing is, on a real subtle level, she was apologizing for what she wanted, and she framed it up in a truth that wasn't really the truth. But well, I want to go I want you to go only if you want to go. I'm like, bullshit. You want us to go?
Yeah.
You would love for us to go.
And it's in these little instances that we are, when we get the opportunity to be truly fully present with our desire and our truth, that it's practicing it in those little, I think, examples that helps to, you know, bring it out into like the bigger, like you said. But how do we, it's like, it's happened so freaking quick, and you're feeling off of each other, and you're like, oh, and it's like, oh my God, just being in that like pure, this is what I want, this is what I would love. Yeah, and it is pure. And going back to one of the questions I feel like you were asking me earlier about desire, you see, even if you say you have no desire, if you were to put a light speed microscope and zero into someone's vibrational field, you could call whatever they're manifesting as their desire. It would just be God's desire or a soul level desire or whatever, but it's still, you're not separate from that. So there's movement. You could call movement desire. Okay. And so somebody who says they have no desire, they just may not have conscious desire. Right. They may not label it desire.
emotion that's trying to happen, a preference that occurs. If I get cold and I want to be hot, I don't have to say, desire, I want to be warm. I'm broadcasting that. So it doesn't matter if I'm a Zen master, and I'm still broadcasting a preference. So it's just a more abstract, and I'm giving it from the super abstract level to the mind. It's abstract.
Right.
Because it's pre-form, it's formless. And that's why, like, for me, because I'm sensitive, a lot of times, and I feel like this conversation is really prevalent and relevant to, you know, people in spiritual communities, even like myself. Mm-hmm. We use words like, oh, I'm open, and a lot of times it's not completely true.
Yeah.
Open is open. Like, maybe you really are neutral completely, but so many times, and I know this now in retrospect, I've said, well, I'm open, when really I'm saying, no, I would love that. Yeah. But because I've already, whatever, think I can't have it or trying to be polite or something, then it translates as a partial truth. And it's partial because part of me is open to if it happens or not. But it's still not completely true, and it's still not completely love if there is a preference resonating, an optimal situation resonating that meets the optimal flow of love for you in that moment and for the other person, and you're not present to it, and you go, I'm just neutral, I'm open. And I know, like, looking back through this awareness, I could see many times where I'm like, oh, whatever, go with the flow, I'm open, we could do that or not do that, and I wasn't in complete presence and fulfillment and embodiment of what I really wanted in an abstract sense or in a specific sense.
Right.
So I'm open, like, is not always true.
Right. And this is goes back to what you were saying about, and this is what I'm also playing a lot with this. Like, okay, I'm trying to feel into and be more comfortable with my co-creative power. I do know we have this power, right? And so when we, back to that example of deciding that, oh, I would love for this interview to happen again on Monday, today, right? So then there's like this aspect though still of like, okay, but I don't want to be attached to that, because if it doesn't happen, I would be okay. Then there'd be another way, or there'd be
and here's, let's dare we try to like break down synchronicity, but this is what's happening. All the potential thoughts, feelings, and decisions I could make on my end, and even how it feels inside me, even how it's manifesting inside me on a level of feeling and thought, is being influenced by that. So if you say, we could do it on Monday, it's starting to grow and starting to come into a co-creative space where that could happen. And if you say, I'm open, it actually moves away from me. Do you get the depth of what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because if you say I'm open and then you get 30% away from the pure love of what you want, then that 30% drop now to me unconsciously won't feel like fulfillment completely. Wow. And we could still sync up if I was meeting you there. Yes. But if I'm like in love and I'm like, my moment's going to be filled with love and what I want, then synchronicity won't organize my possibilities to synchronize with yours, because it won't be fulfilling to me if it didn't feel good to you.
Right. Wow.
So you're literally rearranging me. I'm not even solid.
Right.
From your perspective, I'm not.
Right.
And that's why, like, literally when you said that, it's almost like I could feel like, hey, that's a great idea. Maybe it's not. It's not even conscious. But that's because that's what you're projecting. Like, this could be a good idea for you, Oren, but you know, it's whatever. Then now all of a sudden I'm like, okay, well, I'll treat it like whatever. And I'm trying to explain to you from the subconscious perspective. I wasn't sitting here thinking all these things.
Right.
But I'm extracting from the vibration to show you how synchronicity and co-creation actually happens.
Yes.
Even the thoughts that occur to me are being influenced by the co-creation. So if you project to me that that's a bad idea, then of all the possibilities in the quantum field, I'll synchronize with one of them that's in sync with me. And if I'm in sync with love. Now, if I was also in the same, you know, I said 20% drop, if I was also in that same vibration, then I would still be with you on that level, and it could still happen. Otherwise, it would not fulfill what you want or I want.
Miss each other.
And that's what's crazy. It wouldn't fulfill it for either one of us, because you are saying you want 100%, but if you're not feeling it, then I won't even be the full fulfillment. because then that 20% might represent guilt on a subconscious level. So
Right.
even if I did it, you still wouldn't fully experience it. And you may or may not notice because this zone may not have much contrast in it. The interview would be just a little bit less than what it could have been if you created it and that was in your vibrational field. Or if there was no synchronistic overlap, it wouldn't even occur to me. It would rearrange everything. Maybe my client would still go do what she did, but I was like, oh, this is I feel like going for a dip in the pool.
Yeah.
It wouldn't even occur to me as an inspired thought to call you because you already gave me the offering. You already gave me the invitation on some level, and it's like, whether I thought about it or just was happening in subconscious, it wouldn't occur to me to sync up with you.
Wow.
And so then you could conclude, if you were open, you could say, oh, it wasn't in the flow. And I'm like, that brings us into a flow mastery conversation and a deeper conversation about the flow. Was it in the flow or was it not? What does that even mean now? Wasn't in the flow because it didn't happen. I'm like, well, we just co-created the flow. So this is the flow of what is happening. You're doing what you're doing, and I'm doing what I'm doing, and the interview didn't happen. So it's a deeper set of questions now at this level, because now it's like, what, and that could have all come from you being open.
Right.
But the fact that you said, and you got to that point, and you connected to the flow inside you, which would be the truth of the moment, which really was, you know what? I would love to do it on Monday.
Yes.
That synchronized with the love in me.
Yes.
Which rearranged the whole set of possibilities that could occur.
Yes. It's amazing. Like, we truly are so powerful, right? It's about us really stepping into that power so much more. And I think I'm feeling this, on a greater scale, not just for my life, but of course, in a humanity perspective, but really to just really know our power and to co-create from that place.
Totally.
To trust ourselves and to trust our desires but do we need to, I was thinking about this as well after our last conversation about, like, if it is about a vibration, then do we need to use the words to express it? Well, you do when you're communicating with other people.
Well, again, before I answer that as a linear answer, like yes or no, I'm going to first point to the perspective. Because there is not an answer to that. There's no scientific formula here.
Right.
Because it depends. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the answer is yes and no.
Right.
It's yes if the communication is going to be the bridge that reveals the synchronicity. But even that, if that is true and it's in the flow, it won't feel like a necessity. It won't feel like you have to. It'll feel like you just in the flow.
Yeah.
I've had many times, in fact, all the time, before I can even ask, it'll just happen. So in that case, it's true. Like, I didn't need to ask. I didn't even need to ask. It happens all the time.
Wow.
So I'm not going to make that science and say, well, that means I'm at a level of flow where I don't have to ask. But even the word have to puts you back into this density of, like, trying to make it scientific. It's not scientific. It just depends. And this is another really big one I can feel inside of a lot of people right now. This whole thing about being in the flow and taking action.
Yes.
And I've had people ask a similar question, similar vibration to inside the question. They say, well, so you're saying if I'm in the flow, then I don't have to act? I'm like, the very fact that you're even saying have to act, you're not even in the flow. You think you're in the flow, because if you're in the flow, you are alive. The moment is moving you. And if you have inspiration to move towards your goals and intentions, and you're in the flow, being the flow, and it's manifesting through you, you won't even have that kind of question. You can't stop yourself from acting.
Oh, yes.
So anybody who's asking me that question is really just being analytical, and they're actually in judgment unconsciously, and they're basically saying, I have not learned the discernment of what the flow is and what resistance is. You get what I'm saying? They're maybe trying to come into more clarity about that, because like you're manifesting as the flow of the moment, as the truth of the moment. And if that's going to involve, you know, a million steps between here and here, and you're going to arrive at this creation of a business, for example, then when you're in the flow, it doesn't feel like, oh, I have to do this. I have to take action. I have to ask the question. I have to communicate. But for a lot of people, let's take communication. You know, because I'm very telepathic with a lot of people, sometimes when I'm in session with them or in communication with them, they'll be like, well, you already know how I feel. And I'm like, yeah, but the flow of the moment is for you to actually communicate it. Why? Because that's where your resistance is. So our depth of connection, the intimacy, is not manifesting because you're using your energy to not communicate it. So the communication now becomes the release. But does that mean that you had to communicate it, needed to? No. It's just that that's what's unlocking the flow in that moment. And you don't even have to read enough books and information of when should I communicate, when should I not? When should I ask, when should I not? Because if you understand the feeling of what the flow feels like, then even that question will answer itself to you in the flow. And it's much more accurate than turning it into science.
Right. Right.
Oh, well, I'm at a point where I don't need to ask. So that means as soon as you do that, you're potentially knocking yourself out of flow. It doesn't mean anything because the flow is not static.
Yes.
So for me, that's why you heard me say, it's like, I have many times that I don't even have to ask. But I don't feel any resistance to asking either.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes when we feel like we shouldn't have to ask, or that we should have to ask, that should is actually the resistance. And it's not the asking, it's the energy in the asking. And if you're asking from a should, or even saying should or have to, you're already in resistance anyway. You're already in a distorted perspective by nature of even asking yourself that question. Or it wouldn't feel like a should to you, it would feel like a love.
Right.
So, and I'm not saying that that determines whether you should ask or not, but that's something to inspect now. Where is the judgment occurring? Because that's the creation. That's the quality of the experience that you're going to have when you ask or don't ask or make a decision or make another decision.
Yeah.
So trying to turn flow into science is just fear.
Right. Right. Yeah. Okay, I want to ask one more question. If you feel if there's, and I've been again playing around with this myself about, sorry, there's a little if you feel that I had this desire come through me that I just expressed, and then you actually don't see it manifest, let's
take it out of the theoretical realm. It'll be much easier for me to answer you.
Okay, I guess for me, I mean, yes, right. This could be right. This could be for.
Or if you make up an example, make up one that's true.
No, okay, here is a specific example from my life then. I felt within myself, and it felt like that pure desire, like, I would love to make X amount of dollars per month starting next month. Like, I really felt that. It wasn't in my mind. Like, I really, truly felt it. And then I don't see it happen starting that month or whatever. It's like, where's the disconnect there?
So what questions did you ask yourself once it did manifest? Because this will give you some insight into what's in your vibrational field. What type of analyzing questions did you ask yourself as a result of it not manifesting?
I don't know. Why not? What didn't I do that maybe I was supposed to do? What action did I not maybe take that I should have taken? I don't know.
How did you feel when you're asking those questions?
Oh, icky.
Right, and that's pointing to what was already there. Because if after it did manifest, if you're able to feel icky while you're asking the questions, then the ickiness was already there. Otherwise, you'd be asking different questions. You would be making different conclusions. You would be having a different viewpoint. Even if you were making stuff up, you would be making up different stuff.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like you could make up that I did something wrong, just as easily as you could make up that, wow, something even better is happening. See what I'm saying? And the conclusions that you're coming up with are also in relation to your vibration. And if you have that icky vibration, you just activated it. It didn't come after.
It was already there.
It was already there.
Oh.
It was just in your subconscious. Otherwise, like I said, you'd be making up other stuff. You would see it differently.
Yeah.
You would see the expanded version of it, potentially.
Right.
But that wasn't your line of questioning, or that wasn't the energy inherent in your questioning. All of your questions, 1, 2, 3, and you probably ask more than that, it's not the questions, it's the vibration in the question that is going to reveal to you an answer that is beneficial and expansive, or not beneficial, or, I mean, you could argue to say anything's beneficial, but contracting.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's like when you ask the question, what's wrong with me? Any answer that you get is not really beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
Any answer. Because there's not much potential in that question because it's outside of truth, because nothing's wrong with you. So even if you get 100 answers to the question, what's wrong with you, what are you going to do with that now?
Mm-hmm.
Now what?
Right.
I got the answer to my question. That's not... So that question doesn't have much potential in it, because inherent in the question, the reason why you're asking the question is already because you judged yourself.
Wow.
And so when we say, like, what did I do wrong? Translation, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Man, there's no good answer to that question, really.
Right. Wow.
And the irony is, if you get, let's just say, just in relation to this one idea, this one intention or goal, if you got to the point where you weren't asking the question, what's wrong with me, and you did feel like, the irony is, you probably would be asking that question, and you probably would have what you want. And there's more variables. I'm not saying it's just an exact science like that, but you can get closer into answering a question or receiving the information from the scenario being it didn't happen.
Right.
So it produces questions, and my suggestion to you is ask questions that have potential in them. Ask questions that have potential for expansion. Ask from the perspective that you're not under the assumption that something's wrong. Ask from a neutral perspective. Ask from, you know what? I don't know.
Right.
Because even though you think you're asking from a pure space of I don't know, like, hey, God, universe, what's the deal? What's the deal? What's going on? I don't know. I'm being humble, innocent. Tell me what's going on. You're not being completely innocent and humble, because part of you, the part that feels icky, already has something there. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's just coming up now.
Yes. Wow. Yes, being childlike, which is what you've talked about before.
I had something manifest recently that in a previous life, you know, if I just try to explain this, like there's life happening and then there's death, transition, and birth. That cycle's constantly happening. So I would say that cycle comes around when the soul seeks to express the next level of you-ness, the next level of integration, next level of whatever. And once that happens, your relationship, if you receive it, your relationship to everything changes, which may change your physical reality, it may change your relationships, it may change your decisions, or it may just change who you are within that. So recently, I had an idea that, relatively speaking, was still in the realm of my inspiration. But you understand, inspiration expands into infinity. The feeling inside me of how inspiration moves inside me is never ending. The emotions, the vibrations, and so I planned something that still was in a zone of inspiration. And I'm pointing at stuff like this because I think the subtle layers, it's definitely more appropriate for my direct audience, which is people that are really tapped in, really intuitive, aware, and leaders, influential people. That's primarily who I attract and work with. And so I'm generally working with them within these subtle realms. Which my ability to do that is also stemming from my ability to do that with myself, which I'm sharing with you my own process within this. And so I planned something of my multitude of expressions. I planned something, a workshop, an intensive to do on a particular day. And the way it came through me was still in a zone of inspiration, and I moved forward with it. And for one reason or another, people weren't able to make it. Oh, I'm not able to make it. And so it's looking like, wow, no one's signing up to go to this thing. It was short notice. I could have said, oh, short notice, that's why. But instead, I was present. See, that could feel like you not getting the money feels. Because it's like, oh, this was my desire. It was pure. It was inspired. It's not happening. But what I was present to, because I'm in the center of my transition, I can feel both sides of the wave simultaneously. And so what I made up, and so I'm saying you make up something different depending on where you are, because I did not take that as a reflection of me. That's judgment. That's why I didn't feel icky. So when I'm asking, what's up? That's interesting. Why did that happen? I'm not asking because I'm judging myself.
Right. It's purely,
If anything, my asking the same 3 questions that you ask yourself, I'm asking myself, I can actually gain a potential that's expanded outside of what I already know. Or what, you get what I'm saying? So new information can come in. So I'm sitting in the center asking that question, but my vibration was communicating that something beautiful is happening here. What is it? Major difference. In the same 24 hours, I could feel it. Abstract, nothing tangible happened here, and nothing tangible manifested in what I thought I wanted. But I could feel the truth of the moment, and what I felt was the birthing that was happening simultaneously as the death was happening.
Oh, wow.
In the same 24-hour, Kat, something that I never experienced before as far as a physical reality experience, because this workshop was going to be a physical experience too. That was 100 times bigger than that, simultaneously moved into my field.
Wow.
In the same space and time.
When you were asking, or when you were open, you mean?
Yeah, well, I was asking, but I was asking from a soul. I was asking for like a more pure version of what is trying to birth, because and it wasn't completely mental. That's why I'm saying it's subtle, because I was inspired. I was inspired by doing this workshop, and it's not the workshop. It's not that I'm not supposed to do that workshop. It's that in the flow of that experience, something much bigger was trying to birth. Wow. And so my question was more of a tapping into the receiving of what's trying to happen rather than the appearance of what's happening. And if I would have asked questions from a place of judgment and even got any answers, I would have been like, oh, I need to take action. I need to do this. I need to fix it. I need to make sure, oh, maybe I could do this. And that wouldn't have, for me, wouldn't even have been a bad thing, but it would have represented an old, expired beingness. Now, because I don't let that stuff build up, it wouldn't have not appeared dramatic to anybody around me, and maybe a little bit to me. It would just felt like, okay, I'm going to go do this. I could have like made it happen somehow, probably, and I probably would have kicked ass at it, and I probably would have enjoyed it. But there's a whole new level of enjoyment that was ripe and ready to manifest.
Wow.
And so in comparison to the birthing and the truth of what the flow was trying to bring me that was ripe and ready, and I was close enough in sync and alignment with, that had way more energy than that. But and this is why I say it's subtle when you get into higher levels of contrast that are not demonstratively sharp, not demonstratively like, oh, I hate that, I love that, or that this is good, this is bad. This is like, we're talking about, it's still on the awesomeness scale.
Yeah.
It's in the low end of it.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
But that transition, that's, if I was going to lead this into an exercise, then I would say in intense moments, whether you're feeling something intensely that's trying to birth, or you're feeling like you're losing something, be mindful of where you're asking your questions from. And do you even want to answer those questions? If you feel judgment inherent in your question, the exercise, my suggestion to anybody, is to pause. Don't make any rash decisions. Don't draw any conclusions. Just observe and feel. And yes, if you're thinking, being analytical, pull those thoughts into your feeling and look at it. And just look at it and be like, what's the emotional, the energetic content of this thought I'm having? Can it produce more life? Is it even designed to do that? Nope, that's judgment. So anything that I do now, if I were to go do something from me unconsciously or consciously asking why did this happen? Why did nobody show up? If I were to go do something to make people show up, even if they showed up, that's gonna be my experience. And nothing greater than that.
Right.
And the level of influence, the level of service, the level of love that I can share and express within it, no matter how amazing the idea is going to be capped off by the energetic content that it was architected or created from in the now. So that brings up to your situation many other new potentials now in like your question.
Right.
And I could already feel a new question is formed inside you even by considering what I'm saying.
Right.
Because you're making assumptions unconsciously.
Right.
You're making unconscious judgments on the situation. Even if they weren't harsh, they were still contracted. You're like, you're, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why I don't want to just directly answer your question, because I'm like, you see how relative it is?
Yes. Absolutely.
I could say, oh, well, if it doesn't show up, then hey, just be like, everything happens for a reason. Do you know what I mean? But you might be thinking, no, bullshit, because I don't feel that way right now.
Right.
So that perspective is only useful to you if you can actually feel it. Otherwise, you're just saying it, but really you're not allowing the emotion. You might actually be pissed, or you might feel icky. But if you just say, everything happens for a reason, I'm open, whatever, then that concept doesn't bear the fruit that it's designed to bear.
Right. Right.
It either does or it doesn't. It's kind of like saying want, I want, or what. It doesn't equal anything. It's how you're interacting with the idea. It's how you're beholding the concept.
Woo! So when we ask our questions, like you said, be mindful of where it's coming from, what place it's coming from, and what energy it's carrying. Yeah.
Yeah. Not to mention that now that you have a deeper insight into your vibration, your relationship to your desire, you're closer to seeing how pure your desire is. Because your desire, depending on how much judgment or mental activity is in there, has a level of purity to it. So when we have the mind involved, sometimes we can't even interpret the desire that's coming from a soul level.
Yes.
We may be misinterpreting what we even say that we want.
Yes.
It might even be that.
Right. And that was something that I wanted to ask you as well, because you talk about formless into form. I can feel when you could feel your mind sort of constricting something. So how do we truly let that pure, formless, inspired desire come through without the limitation of the mind? How? I mean, again, it's not like a real simple answer or anything or a science, but...
Well, you can play with it, and like I said, pull it into your space. If it's a thought or a desire, let's just say it's a desire, when you pull it into your feeling and just feel, like, especially if it gets specific, if it starts to feel contracted, just play with it. Pull it in and like look at it, because then you can see from different levels of your consciousness what it is that what your desire is composed of.
Yes.
What's the emotional, energetic soup of your desire? And then you can also see, like, the more you release judgment and you're honest with yourself about all the layers of it, the more you can see. And the more you can see, the more you're seeing now from your spiritual eyes, from your heart, from your higher mind, than you are from your intellect. But it's like, so, and once you can see that, then you'll be more at the seat of creation now. And you'll feel more empowered. You'll be like, oh, wow, that's why that's happening. I get it. That equals that. You see, and depending on how we're experiencing this, there are times where, like, and I feel like this is part of our evolution, where the divine will, God's will, the soul's will, and our will is the same thing. It's valuable, can be valuable for us to separate it, because the humility is in alignment with truth, because it's like we can't even imagine with our minds. But you understand, like, we're also not separate from the divine. And that's why there are times where you can use your mind and it's going to be the same will as God's will.
Yeah.
Because you're not using your mind in that way. Your mind is aligned with God,
yes.
with spirit, with soul. And so it's a function of our evolution that we put in books, and people like me say, hey, just let it go. Just like, don't even try to mess with it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not because when you mess with it that it does anything. It's just our maturity in our ability to be in sync with more of who we are.
Mm.
And that's why I did a tips from the flow video, and it wasn't completely truth, but it had some depth to it. And I said that remember the old Rolling Stones song? You can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, this might find
what you need.
You get what you need.
Oh yeah, right.
Right. We'll duet there. And what I said, you can always get what you want. And I know that probably is going to stretch a lot of people. But what I really meant by it was that when you are in alignment, when you're in sync, when you're not coming from the density of the limited mind that is just the part of you that's your personality and your interpretation or your ego, when the mind and body are in sync with the spirit, then what you want and what God wants, or what your soul wants, or whatever perspective, can be the same thing. Yeah. And in that case, you are getting what you want, but you're having the experience of getting what you want.
Yes.
Like in my example with the workshop, my soul was trying to bring me something greater. Yes. But I'm still not separate from my soul, so that is what I want. So the I that said I wanted this, and I'm not getting what I want I actually was getting what I want. Do you know what I'm saying? It's the same. It's another I.
Yes.
And that's why, like, in the times where those I's become the same I, and there's one I, then you can and do always get what you want, and you are in full conscious awareness of whatever your soul has laid out as the optimal growth for you in that moment, which is total fulfillment. It is complete, and it is what you actually want. And I think that, like I said, I say this lightly. Oh, no, I'm not going to say it lightly. I see that it's beneficial to not try to enter the realm with our mind, to enter the soul realm, because it's like, of what benefit it is. And that's why, like, all, humility in that sense is so beneficial. But I also see that the flip side of that is like trying to separate yourself from your soul it's like it's an asset and a liability. It's an asset as long as it's creating space. As long as it's expanding you, then it's beneficial and it's progressive.
Right.
But that same asset flips and becomes a liability in a sense, or a contraction, when you say, well, hey, I'm separate from God. I'm set, like, and so it becomes false humility.
Yes.
It's an unconscious attempt to keep yourself in check. And so if this was 0 point and this was like, ooh, look what I did. I'm creating the flow, and that's the mind. The flip side, and this is 0, this is the heart. The flip side of that is, hey, whoa, hey, I had nothing to do with this. Me, little old me, separate from spirit me, little peon me, I had nothing to do with this amazing art.
Right.
I wasn't a part of that. That was just all God, as if I'm not God.
Right.
At the same time. And that's the ego too, and it's the more deceptive part of the ego. It's a trick. It's like a Jedi. Do you know what I mean? Because it's masked as humility. It's actually still arrogance.
Looks good, right? Mm-hmm.
And I know, because I've done it before. And it happens a lot of times when people create enough space, they surrender enough, either consciously or unconsciously. They slip into the flow. They have amazing experiences, and them as their whole being can experience it, even their personality, their ego, everything, and they're riding the flow. And then they say something like, I'm not sure. Hey,
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's the same voice on the other end saying, I am it, I did it, and saying I didn't. From that I, it's the same I.
Yes.
It's the same I.
Yes.
It's just wearing a different outfit. You know what I'm saying? It's wearing like tennis shoes and a ball cap. Over here, it's whatever, wearing a suit and blinged out, because it's like, hey, with this eyes, the humble eyes. Right. Like I'm wearing a whatever, I don't know, spiritual outfit.
Yeah.
Or hey, nothing to do. And it's deceptive because there's partial truths in it. Mm-hmm. a partial truth is one of the more subtle realms that I seem to interact with people, because it's partially true. That's how you can use it to say it is true. Because when people say that, they're tapping into something that could be true, has truth to it, which is, you know, the infinite, the divine is way more than our conception of anything.
Right.
So in that sense, it's greater.
Right.
And that just is. You don't have to claim that. You don't have to claim that no more. You don't have to claim that you can't understand that any more than you claim that you do understand it. When you're in the center, you just are.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter what you say. You know, you could even say, look what I did. Look what I did. I created the flow. And your vibration could still be in alignment with the 0 point, and it has no effect on you. It's not the words. It's how you're beholding them. Yes. How you're beholding yourself when you're saying them. That's what you're communicating.
Yes.
No matter what you say. So, and I do think that there's a lot of value in language and words. Depends on where you are in your spiritual development. And whether or not it's valuing you in that moment. It's not science. It's not like every time you do this, it's that.
Right, right, exactly. Oh my gosh. I love that. That was something that you just answered without me even asking. It was something I wanted to touch on. So that's beautiful and brilliant.
Oh, there you go. And answer without asking.
Yeah, right.
And it goes. Thank you for pointing it out, because it goes to the point that I was making, which is, even though you didn't ask, it wasn't, because you're in the flow, it didn't come out in the flow for you to ask. Because you're in the flow, you still asked.
Yeah.
You still asked.
Wow.
If you're vibrating in a question and you're in the receiving mode, then you're in the fulfillment of it. That's the asking. That's the manifestation, because you manifested because you're in sync with the question. The question's not separate from you. See what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so that's when synchronicity can happen in between. We're co-creating and on a different level. That's how I can answer the question without you actually asking it verbally, because we're connected in that flow. We're connected in our hearts where you already did ask.
Yes. Magic. Yes. I love it. Well, I think we're going to have to do another one of these, and it'll be like flow, like you talked about a minute ago. You were saying like this is getting more into flow mastery. So we'll do another one that's like flow mastery. Maybe we can like rock our worlds even more.
Yeah, I'm totally down, and because for me, like one of my highest inspirations right now is in the realm of what I would call mastery, because it does touch to the edges in our minds, the edges of where we're at, even in relation to flow, you know, and it really brings it down into this awareness that like the flow, which is this thing that's outside of our mind, is seemingly, you know, outside of our control in a sense, is actually super practical. And I know that that will bring everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people to their edge, because the places it appears to not be, you know, like in relationship or in business or something that feels more complex or intricate, that's just the edge of the mind going, because the truth is in that moment, like, hey, I don't know how to synchronize this right now. I don't know how to be in the flow in this scenario, but because we believe, because we hit that edge, if it's uncomfortable and we don't want to go into the unknown and back into the humility, back into the innocence, the edge will show up as a conclusion. Conscious or unconscious, and the conclusion might be like, yeah, well, when it comes to this, and this, I can flow, but when it comes to this, like, yeah, you gotta find balance. Which, if you're saying you gotta find balance and you're seeking balance from your edge, you don't even know what you're asking for.
Right.
You're really in a state of control and saying, I don't want to enter into the unknown again. Dare I say that I don't know, but I still know that the universe is capable of bringing me this level of flow in this situation. That's why I call it mastery. Yes. It takes people beyond their edge. And that's why when somebody goes, yeah, when I get the flow, I'm like, wait for it. I'm fine. They'll show me their edge. They go, but, or if they don't say but, they'll try to be more diplomatic. Like, and, no, I totally, and like right there, you're basically saying, I don't get the flow beyond this level.
Right.
They're like, oh, and I totally understand the flow, and I'm great at it, and I'm like, you're about to tell me where you don't understand the flow now.
Yes. I've noticed myself, because I know you've said that whatever comes after the but now is like, get your butt out of the way, you've said. So now I've noticed myself when I'm writing something, I'll say, however, instead of the but it's still the same thing.
However is more elegant. And it depending on how it feels inside you, it does feel a little bit lighter. It has more potential in it.
Yes.
But those are the edges, and that's all they are. And what I would recommend to anybody, instead of saying but, pop back into humility, be comfortable with being in the unknown, and say the truth. The truth is, I've never experienced the flow in this area, but I know that it exists, and God, universe, spirit, whatever, like, I'm open. Like, I honestly, I don't know.
Show me, yeah.
Everything else is all judgment, and it's all like your edge going, what if this, analyzing this, asking people like me questions is all just like, the truth is, you know what? I know that's possible. I haven't experienced it.
Yeah, and
that's something new can happen.
Yeah.
Even if you feel uncomfortable. It doesn't have to be a positive space. It's just not, you're not resisting what is. And if you start there with, I don't know.
Yes.
That's how you move beyond your edge, back into the infinite, back into innocence, and then you collapse a new edge in relation to your creations. Because creation, in that sense, not in a negative way, is limiting in that sense. It has we create boxes. I mean, that's part of this physical reality. Mm-hmm. But when you know that movement and how it happens inside you, then now you can create in this world, not of this world. That is the fusion of like heaven on earth. That is the boundless business. That is these things happening simultaneously rather than making it science. It's a dynamic, expanding science rather than this is who I am now, so it's defined. And when the edge expires and my soul's trying to bring me to the light, I'll fight it until I decide not to, and then I'll go back into innocence voluntarily, or I'll be forced into it, and then something new will birth, and I'll be like, and then I'll be, that can get, over time, can get more faster and more graceful.
Yeah.
But if you fear what you perceive to be a feeling of death, you avoid it at all costs until you have no choice.
Yeah.
But I'm only saying that's exciting to me because I'm pointing at the fact that if you know that's what you're doing, you actually do have a choice.
Yeah.
So.
Oh my gosh, so much goodness and brilliance here. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. And thank you for flowing with this possibility of Monday,
Yeah.
It's even the stuff that we missed that we said before, this is even better.
Exactly.
There's even more flowing now than there was before,
Yes, exactly. And I felt myself for a moment fearing ooh, what if this isn't going to be as good as what we just did? And then but I was like, no, I just let it go. I'm like, nope, it's perfect.
Yes.
So if you people out there want to, we're going to do this again sometime for sure. Oren's going to be a guest on the show again, absolutely. But until then, if you want to hear more from him, go to his website, orenharris.com. It's Harris.
Yes, and Oren as in Nancy.
Yes. And sign up for his tips from the flow, because he sends these amazing tips from the flow every couple days, and they're just they're short and they're awesome and inspiring. So definitely do that. And there's so much more goodness on his site as well. So stay tuned for more. Thanks again, Oren.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks to everybody connected to this moment in time.
Yes.
And everybody for showing up. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I appreciate you.
Yes, indeed. Ciao for now.
Ciao.
Bye.